Do you pay attention to anniversaries, to this anniversary?
Well, in fact, yes. We are going to do a service at Arlington Cemetery, and where President Clinton is coming to speak. I think there's this desire to come together. You know, I was thinking, my father, used to listen to Shakespeare. My room was next to his, and so when he was doing his sit-ups in the morning, he'd also listen to a Shakespeare. Of course, what else would you do?
I thought it was just Aeschylus. Shakespeare too,
no,
huh?
Shakespeare. In fact, he and Richard Burton once had a contest who could remember more Shakespeare, and Daddy won.
All these years later, what is it that touches people so deeply about your dad?
The fact that he had both moral and physical courage. And so he was willing to do tough things and willing to say tough things, and yet had enormous empathy for those who suffered.
That story when he came home from the Delta and walked into dinner.
Yes.
True story?
My father was this United States Senator. He'd been asked to visit the Delta. And he came back one June night. It was a beautiful June evening, and walked into our dining room, which, as you can imagine, is a big dining room, crystal chandelier, linen tablecloths, lovely, a lot of kids. And he walked in, and he was ashen and shaken, and he said, I've just been to the Mississippi, and I've seen a family live in a shed, a hut, the size of our dining room. And the children had distended stomachs because they didn't have enough to eat. And there were sores all over them because they didn't have health care. Kathleen, do you know how lucky you are? Do you know how lucky you are? You have a responsibility for this country. You have a responsibility. Do something for our country. So he was shaken, having seen poverty, which was extraordinary, and also a sense of responsibility. And by the way, because of that trip, he got the food stamp program changed.
This is the way your father was raising you?
This was raising all the time. As we would land in LaGuardia, rather than go directly to our apartment at UN Plaza, we would drive through Harlem. So he'd say, because I want you to know how other people live.
Pete Hamill said last week when we were talking that your dad's capacity to do this was born in looking at African Americans and seeing that particular group as just the latest version of what had happened to the Irish.
I think that's true. I think that because he had grown up in an Irish Catholic family in which there was so much prejudice against the Irish, there were signs, help wanted, no Irish need apply. He knew that his father left Boston to move to New York because of the anti-Irish prejudice. He went through the 1960 campaign where Billy Graham and Norman Vincent Peale had said, don't vote for John Kennedy because they're Catholic. So he was well aware of what prejudice was like. So I think that when he had power, he had the understanding of his foot in both camps. I know what it's like to be left out, left behind, looked down upon, and I also have the power to do something about it.